Attempts to elect a new Speaker of the House of Representatives met with failure after no one secures enough votes. I'll speak to this Republican strategist to discuss what could be ahead tomorrow as the votes continue. Plus, this week marking 2 years since the insurrection on the Capitol, this former federal prosecutor will join me. Plus, the war in Ukraine. I'll speak to Finland's foreign minister. The Republicans tried to elect a new Speaker of the House of Representatives today, going into multiple ballots, the first time that has happened in a very long while, once in a century. Joining me now to discuss what took place today and how the Republican Party can move forward and be as united as the Democratic Party, who is the minority party in the House of Representatives, seems to be at this point in time, is Rina Shah. She is a former Republican congressional aide. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, Wyatt, I'm happy to be with you.
So I guess just starting off with, the fact that not very often is a speaker elected under such kind of divisive terms within his or her party, even, today as an example, going into multiple ballots is really a historic thing. What did you make of today?
Well, today was really shocking to anybody that has worked within the institution of Congress, which I've done. I served as a senior aide to two Republican members of the House of Representatives, starting in 2008 and ended my time there in 2011. It was a really great time for me because I was in my most formative years of young professional life. Of course, I had formed my political ideologies prior to coming to Capitol Hill. And so working for two Republicans felt really natural in my professional journey. During that time that I was there, you really get to see how everything happens. And you see so much of how everything happens is when one side comes to the middle and the other side has to meet them there. That's just how our legislation gets passed up on Capitol Hill. Today was a shocking, historical day. Many of us had predicted it would be 2 to 3 ballots, but I certainly thought it would end there. I didn't think that they would adjourn today and move things over to tomorrow. So here we sit with almost, if you really look at it technically, no new Congress because these members have not been sworn in yet. They cannot be until the Speaker is elected. And again, today, the 117th Congress adjourned under Nancy Pelosi. And right now, there's no new Speaker and no new members sworn in.
And when you look at what's being presented by every side and every angle of it, you have both Republican camps, one camp being, kind of the Jim Jordan end of things. On the first ballot, Andy Biggs was kind of the representative of essentially the anti-Kevin McCarthy representatives in the Republican Party. Both of those two camps say they're not willing to budge. On the Democratic side, every Democratic representative voted for Hakeem Jeffries. When and how does this end if, again, both Republican camps are saying they're not willing to budge?
Well, funny enough, it's anyone's guess right now as to how this whole thing shakes out tomorrow. There's a 50-50 chance it could see multiple ballots. But at the end of the day, one thing we do know is that there was another name that emerged today. At the end of the day, like I said, it was Jim Jordan. And gee, somebody could have predicted that because look, the sort of heir apparent, if it's not McCarthy, would be Scalise, who's a whip, and Jim Jordan as well, who's been very close to leadership for many years, and Stefanik, who is the head of the GOP caucus. So these three people, Jordan being a Freedom Caucus person, these three people are names that are probably being discussed very seriously tonight because there's general sense that a consensus candidate could win this thing. The Democrats are looking fantastic right now. Hakeem Jeffries beat out McCarthy on those ballots. The first two, I recall just being completely floored that Jeffries could really potentially have ended up speaker if there were people mad enough to say, hey, I want to vote for a Democrat. Of course, we know that these holdouts on Kevin McCarthy were not going to cast their ballot from Jeffries, right? But the reality is this, is that they want to embarrass the Republican establishment. That is the bottom line. There's 5 of them that have been so prominent. But today, going into that vote, Kevin McCarthy knew there could be up to 20 people who would object to him, who would not vote for him. And so that's what we saw shake out. It's a really telling moment of where the party is, where the Republican Party is. It's in a fractured moment. It's in a moment where completely it's chaotic. It's defined by its disarray. And there are people that have genuinely lost faith in its leaders because Kevin McCarthy knew this for many months. He's been in negotiations with the Freedom Caucus for many months. And again, still no better of a situation today.
And picking up on that last point, it's not like the midterm elections happened yesterday. They happened at the beginning of November. So Kevin McCarthy and really all of the campaigns on the Republican side who have been trying to negotiate, as you mentioned and pointed out, for months. What is, obviously, I'm sure it was partially their families are on Capitol Hill, they wanted a break, etc. But what did adjourning the House today and pushing it until tomorrow ultimately do?
The key thing is it said that, look, going straight to ballot just didn't do anything. They thought that they could sort of force the hand of people by bringing up the next ballot right away. But what it really is intended to do is to let them go back to the drawing board tonight and figure something out. That something is completely, again, in this modern era, just not something anybody is acquainted with. That means they have to either find another candidate to coalesce around, come up with another game plan, or again, McCarthy could really try to pull some more stunts and see what he could do to make some more trades, make some more deals in order to get people to cross over to him. Like I alluded to earlier, I believe that ship has sailed. It really gives them a break tonight to try to figure out how is the road forward possible even. And that's why I said also, I genuinely think multiple ballots are also, again, possible tomorrow. They might not have any kind of consensus or path forward that becomes evident tonight.
What's your prediction for tomorrow? Are you expecting it to come to a close?
I do think it will close. I do think cooler heads may prevail. Sometimes, a night does that. It's been known to do that in Washington. There have been many deals brokered in back rooms, in hideaways on the Senate side, of course. But we're talking about the House. This is a really large body with a whole new crop of kind of candidate that's come in this time. And here's a really important figure that I think is just something we ought to all know. Since 2009, that was the time of the Tea Party. If you anybody that's been paying attention, the Tea Party ushered in this whole era of rage against the political establishment. Today's Republican caucus is made up about 85% of its members are elected after the year 2009. So that's really tells you where a lot of their mentality is. These are people that are comfortable raging against the establishment. These are people that really know the era of Trump type of politics and are really fed up with Washington politics as usual. So that's why I saw a couple of people cross over from voting McCarthy today to voting for Jordan. Anything is possible. Going into today, my prediction was that McCarthy can really pull this one off. He's been known to be a political animal for a long time. I just didn't have any faith when today closed that he could possibly pull it off tomorrow. I really am very, very nervous to make any predictions right now because I think tonight there's a real possibility for another candidate to emerge from the Republicans.
Okay, Rina Shah, former Republican congressional staffer. Thanks so much for making the time. Really appreciate it, and good luck watching tomorrow.
Certainly. Thanks, Wyatt.
This coming week will mark 2 years since the insurrection on the United States Capitol on January the 6th. The former president, of course, over the summer with the FBI's raid of Mar-a-Lago over secret classified documents at the former president's home. Joining me now to discuss what we can make of everything that has happened with the former president and where he stands in terms of potential legal problems, etc., is Renato Mariotti, former federal prosecutor. Let's just start out with that very simple question. Where is the former president in terms of, facing potential legal challenges with whether it be the classified documents, whether it be the role that he played in the insurrection on the Capitol, etc.?
Oh, great question, Wyatt. I think it's fair to say we don't know for sure. But based upon what we do know publicly, what I would say is that he's likely much further down the road in terms of potentially getting indicted in the Mar-a-Lago documents case. And the reason I say that is the charges in the Mar-a-Lago case are much more straightforward. For example, if at least in the United States, if you possess classified documents or top secret documents in your home or in some place that you control, and you're not authorized to do so, that's a very straightforward federal crime. There are potential defenses for the former president, particularly given his role. Obviously, he may have not kept track of everything as it was leaving the White House, but the the administration and Justice Department went out of their way to, I'd say, bend over backwards to accommodate President Trump. They let him know that the documents belong to them. They sent him letters. They sent him a grand jury subpoena. They visited personally. And so all of those things, I think, go to show, and I think would demonstrate in a trial that Trump knew that those documents belonged to the government, that there was classified documents, or at least documents the government believed were classified, and that he hadn't returned them. Whereas regarding January 6th, there are signs that the investigation is still at an early stage. There were subpoenas, grand jury subpoenas that went out recently to state officials, for example, in various battleground states. But more generally, I would say that the potential charges there are much more complicated and difficult to bring. And so I expect that any potential liability is less and more remote for the former president regarding the January 6th insurrection.
And, politics aside, when you look at, again, Mar-a-Lago and the search that was done for those documents, January 6th, all of it would be wrong to do, regardless if you were the former president, but it kind of makes it that much more wrong when you are the former president. You oftentimes will now hear people talking about how the former president may be running again as a way to try and avoid some of those potential legal problems. Is that something that you see when you think about the former president running again?
It's a good question. I think that I can't get inside his head. He's got he's famously difficult to figure out. So I don't know exactly what he's thinking, but I do think that he probably has been told that being the president makes it harder for him to be prosecuted. And I think he saw when he was the president that he was able to exert some influence over the Justice Department and steer it away from certain investigations. I mean, there was obviously a very substantial alleged obstruction of justice during his administration, as detailed in, for example, in the Mueller report. So I think that's possible. I will say that if he became president and he was even convicted of a crime, it would be very complicated to see how he could possibly be imprisoned by the judiciary while being the president. That would create a constitutional conundrum that we had never faced before.
As the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine continues, a lot of questions continue to rise surrounding what various other countries can do to continue to support Ukraine as they continue to fight against Russia in what many call an unjustifiable war. Joining me now to discuss this and more surrounding the war in Ukraine is Finland's Minister of Foreign Affairs to discuss his perspective on the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. Minister, thank you so much for making the time. Really appreciate it. I suppose let's just start out with a very simple question as it relates to, do you believe that Finland has done enough, but I guess more specifically, what can Finland continue to do to support Ukraine in these very uncertain, you could say, times?
Been helping Ukraine through humanitarian aid, through development funding, and also sending directly military packages. We have sent 9 times already military support to Ukraine. And then we are part of European Union, and European Union has, of course, reacted in the beginning of this Russian aggression against Ukraine by putting sanctions and establishing funds, European Peace Facility, to support also militarily Ukraine. So these are the steps that we have been taking. And of course, we are ready to take more sanctions when this conflict is continuing.
And now I want to ask you a question as well surrounding what concerns you have in your capacity as the Foreign Affairs Minister of Finland. Finland also borders Russia. What kind of concern do you have that some of the implications of this war might extend over to a country such as Finland?
Long common border with Russia, more than 1,300 kilometers. That means more than 800 miles. And of course, our border with Russia has been remaining peaceful throughout this conflict. We are, of course, having our normal processes, but currently we have been limiting the tourism traffic over the border. So if you are studying, or if you are working, or if you have relatives, or if you need some hospital care, you are able to get visa to cross the border, but otherwise we have been cutting down the normal traffic. But of course, we are in a vicinity of the conflict area. Ukraine is not so far, and also we have seen already the first attack in the Baltic Sea region when the Nord Stream gas pipeline was attacked. It was attacked by a state-like actor, and of course, it's getting it's bringing the conflict much closer to us. So we are also, of course, taking care of our normal security, our military forces, and also we are prepared for different kind of hybrid and cyber threats.